Since the lockdowns began, it's become apparent just how pervasive the alcohol industry is across a number of sectors. Without it, it takes away the allure of patronizing other industries for many customers. And of course, the alcohol industry has taken a direct hit for the fourth time, experiencing a fourth ban since lockdown regulations kicked in March of last year, and the costs have been high.
If you look at the overall bans from the beginning of the lockdown, we are talking about 161 days that we have not been able to trade financially. From a sales revenue loss perspective, it's 45 billion. And what we could have contributed to government in relation to that, around about 10 billion that government lost just from the excise tax, the portion of the price that people will pay for alcohol. And if you look at the overall value chain, other suppliers contributing VAT and other contributions, and it gets up to about 35 billion that government has lost.
Adding insult to the injury of not being able to operate, the rampant looting of alcohol sites also proved extremely costly to the industry and may likely fuel an already booming illicit market.
We estimate around about 500 million worth of stock was lost during that period, and that excludes the vandalism and the damage to property that has happened. And our concern now is that you have such a large amount of volume circulating in the country, and you have legal businesses not being able to open, and it's really playing into exactly what we have been saying, that the illicit market and the illegality that these outright bans are creating has led us to where we are today.
Businesses in the township had the double blow of increased restrictions and the looting and vandalism of the recent weeks, and surveys indicate that many small businesses in the townships will not have had insurance and will likely have to start from scratch. Business bodies are agitating for more engagement with the SME sector around lockdown restrictions.
It's the constant lockdown and open and lockdown that is frustrating a lot of these entrepreneurs, so that, even when you want to consistently run your business and go back into the market, it becomes difficult because now it's too volatile and you can't predict what is going to happen next. So I really think a concerted effort, and I think I also understand COVID, it poses a health risk, but I think a concerted effort from a government perspective in being able to engage not just high-level industry practitioners, but industry practitioners in the ecosystem, entrepreneurial ecosystem that are on the ground, to be able to facilitate a better working relationship.
The hospitality and tourism sectors have really struggled given international travel and occasional domestic travel restrictions, and now the recent government ban on Gauteng leisure travel on account of the high incidence of the coronavirus in the province, as well as the ban on alcohol. The industry is said to be heavily indebted due to slashed revenues on account of the more than a year of COVID restrictions. The industry says it needs major support if it's to remain viable.
I think even if our president on Sunday actually it takes away the restrictions we currently fall under. Obviously, we've got the alcohol, we've got Gauteng, and we've obviously got limited numbers. Even if he takes away all of those three things, we are still in dire straits because we are such a bad, compromised financial position. So I really think that this is a time where our president should call upon the banks to actually allow some latitude. I've heard some dreadful stories of how the banks have just shown no latitude or concern or anything for businesses which, through no fault of their own, have not been able to trade and therefore obviously aren't able to service their debts. So I really think this is a time for our banks to pull together and actually really come together to see how they can help.
The restaurant sector got some leeway 2 weeks ago in that it was able to resume dine-ins, but without alcohol, there's little value proposition for many to chill at a restaurant. The sector says hundreds upon hundreds of restaurants have closed since the lockdown started, and that things are only getting worse.
The restaurant industry certainly has called on every level to reopen our doors and to allow us to safely dispense alcohol and to bring back our dinner time trade. The last 15 months have showed that there's absolutely no regard, despite us reaching out to Minister Patel on several accounts and showing that we certainly do need reprieve, and that we have given him many suggestions to allow us to be able to save our restaurants. It has completely fallen on deaf ears. And as we move through the stages of lockdown and the numbers are dropping, we simply cannot trade our businesses without our core component and unless there's scientific evidence and accumulated data. We're currently sitting with 80% of our staff on unpaid layoff, and the list of fatalities of restaurants closing are are growing by the day. So we certainly hope that the necessary conversation that we've had over the last week and the indication to allow us to be able to manoeuvre through the space that we've been in have been well heard, and that we will see relief for the restaurant industry.
These industry players say they've been petitioning the government to ease regulations in the interim and warn that if their pleas fall on deaf ears, the nation will be faced with even more business failures and job losses, further taking South Africa's unemployment levels to stratospheric levels. Nompumelelo Siziba, SABC News, Johannesburg.